Thank you for staying. Time now for us to get into the newspapers, and we're joined by the NDC's parliamentary candidate-elect for South Tone, Maxwell Lukuto. Before we pan to him, before we get to him, let's just let you know, as always, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helps us every day, every morning, to bring you this segment. So here's what they're offering you. If you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free. And here's where you can locate Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here in Accra, they are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, you can locate them at Kronum Abuehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady and Naji Estate. That's where you can locate them. If you come back into the Greater Accra region, Tema, they can be located in Community 22. There's also Techiman Hanswa and the Esiama and Zema branches as well. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the newspaper review, Maxwell Lukuto joins the conversation. Good morning, Max.
How are you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I am well, but all is not well for my constituents. Let me say good morning to you, your listeners, and my people in the Southcom constituency. Yes, the flood issue, water has receded significantly, and the consequences are here with us. The farmlands have been washed away. Even if you see the surfaces of the land themselves, they don't look like farms that used to be there a month ago. And so we are thinking about how to reconstruct these farms and get back to the normal life. Drinking water is an issue. And then food for the people who have been affected, who can't immediately go back to their livelihood, their workplaces, it's an issue. And so we're trying to survive, and we are managing. I just pray and hope that we will get more relief items. Let me use the opportunity to thank individual and corporate bodies who are continually been coming to our aid to give us support. Even yesterday, we received some relief items from some groups or companies that came around to support the disability community. The disability desk of the National Democratic Congress from the national level was with us yesterday to make some donations to these people, wheelchairs, and they brought some people to come and also repair those broken down ones and all those other stuff. So we want to be grateful to everybody who is coming to our aid, but we still need more aid, and our people will be grateful for any little thing that will come to them.
If I were to ask you, what specifically do you need for now? What is the most urgent need of the people? What would you say?
There is some food, not enough though, because like I keep saying, it will take about a month or over for people to get back to their normal self. We need food. We need water. And then people whose homes have been, all their houses are broken down out of the settling of the water in these buildings for a long time, need some shelter. So we will need some homes for some people to settle in. And then finally, we'll need some compensation package for farmers who have lost most of their farms in this flood.
All right. And, well, we'll see about all of that. But let's get into the papers now, Maxwell. The Daily Graphic is where we're going to start from. It's a 2024 general election. That's the banner headline. Battle of the North. Bawumia Mahama on tough turf. And that's the main story there. On the back page, Mapa flood victims appeal for direct relief supplies. There's also Chibi Ahweniasehene donates mosquito nets to flood victims. Let's get into those stories. I'll start with the one on the back page. Now, flood victims taking shelter at 3 camps at Mapa in the North Tone district in the Volta region have appealed to relief donors to attend to them directly to save them from further starvation. They said the procedure to access the relief items meant for them was long and cumbersome. Currently, the items are channeled through the Emergency Operations Center at the district capital, Bator. Now, here's what they say, quoting, In the abundance of donated relief items through the assembly, we are still going hungry without knowing when our next food supplies will reach us, the Mepe RC primary camp leader Kofi Amejo said. He said the camp was holding 110 people displaced by floods from the spillage from the Akosombo and Kpong dams. He added that requests by the displaced persons for food and other relief items from the assembly were not readily responded to, making life difficult for the people. He made the remarks when insurance brokers Edward Mensah Wood and Associates donated various relief items to the camps last Tuesday. The items, valued at about 50,000 Ghana cedis, included mattresses, bags of rice, boxes of tinned fish, cooking oil, tomato puree, and bales of clothes, among others. Is this reality? Is this the reality there? So that even in the midst of plenty, people are still hungry and going thirsty. Is that the reality, Maxwell?
Yeah, it should be the reality. You see, these items come through groups of people. Some come through the MPs, some come through the NADMO of the District Assembly, some come through the chiefs and other individuals. I was also fortunate to have some relief items through me. What I do is, as soon as I receive these things, especially the food stuff and water, I would quickly organize buses, trucks to load these things directly to the communities. And then we have a list of people who have been directly affected. And so when we go, we call a community meeting of the people and then dish out these things directly to the individuals. There are some other groups of people who keep this stuff for some time. Maybe if it's a group of chiefs, they may want all of them to meet and decide on which community should benefit and how the relief items get to them. If it is through the MPs, of course, I'm aware that most of the MPs have kept these things under lock and key, and they may want to release that and when they deem it necessary and fit. And so, yes, I would agree to a large extent that there is a lot in stock, but maybe it is because of the control system.
But what are you suggesting? You say some of the MPs are keeping these items until they deem it fit to release them. I mean, what better time to release them than when people are starving? What is happening?
People may not be starving in the real sense of starve as we would want to look at it, but there's some rationing system that they would want to use in distributing these relief items. Their thinking may be that if you send all the things to them at a go, within a day or two or even a week, they will dissipate and they will still come back. So let's find a way of rationing these things to them. People come and go directly, like you have mentioned this Mensah Wood company or something. They have gone directly to them to give the items to them. And I am just thinking aloud that in their thinking, they feel that they should hold this for a little while so that once whatever they have directly is done, they may want to send these things to them. But it's a wake-up call for us to go directly to the people and ensure that whatever we have in stock is given to them so that those who usually will benefit from the spoils of war will not take advantage. Also, around those who are keeping the items who also
right. Well, that's an interesting dimension. Thank you for the clarity there. Chibi Ahwenease donates mosquito nets to flood victims, and the chief of Chibi Ahwenease, Bawumia Jansi Korea, has donated 2,250 pieces of treated mosquito nets to the 37 military hospital in Accra to support victims of the Akosombo dam spillage. The insecticide nets are meant to curb the spread of malaria in the affected communities. Now, the items, estimated at 225,000 Ghana cedis, were designed by the Johns Hopkins University School of Public Health in Baltimore, Maryland, USA, and had been approved by the Food and Drugs Authority. So that's the latest there. At least I wanted to take those two stories bordering on the floods. But then let's get into the politics. The election of Vice President Dr. Mahama Bawumia as flag bearer of the governing New Patriotic Party has set the stage for a real showdown with former President John Mahama of the opposition National Democratic Congress for the Jubilee House in 2024. Both presidential hopefuls hail from the northern part of the country and will be battling for electoral supremacy in the 5 regions of the North and the Zango areas, which had remained faithful to the NDC since the inception of the Fourth Republic in 1992. The margins had, however, reduced since the emergence of Dr. Bawumia in the political space. Instructively, both candidates come from regions that had been carved out of the northern region. Now, while Dr. Bawumia comes from the northeast, Mr. Mahama hails from the Savannah region. Political paternal lineages, if you want to take a look at that, perhaps it is not surprising that the two northern contenders had political paternal lineages that had paved the way for them in their political careers. Former President John Mahama's father, Emmanuel Adama Mahama, was a Minister of State under Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He was the first member of parliament for the West Gonja constituency and the first northern regional minister who later became a senior presidential advisor during Ghana's Third Republic under Liman. I'll not give all the scoop. I want you to get the paper and read it yourself. But let me also talk about Dr. Bawumia. His father, Alhaj Mumuni Bawumia, on the other hand, was a politician and lawyer who later became the chief of Berega near Wali Wali in the northeast region. Before then, he was chairman of the Council of State in the Fourth Republic from 1993 to 2000. During his early political career, he was a member of the Northern People's Party and later the United Party. He subsequently defected from the UP while still in Parliament and crossed carpet to the Convention People's Party in 1958. So that's a bit of a history there. But coming to you, Maxwell, looking at all the dynamics at play currently, looking at the way the political landscape is, looking at the fact that now there are two candidates from the northern belt of the country, it looks like a straight fight. But the question is, can the MPP break the 8? And on the other hand, can the NDC wrest power from the NPP, even in spite of everything that has happened? What's your take?
Sure, we have interesting times ahead of us, especially with the coming on board of Dr. Bawumia as the leader of the New Patriotic Party. Let me say congratulations to him and congratulations to the NPP for a well-organized Congress to elect the flag bearer. I must say that the coming on board of Dr. Bawumia as the running mate to Nana Addo, the first time he came on board, didn't see the light of day. After 2 attempts and the third one, I think he got it through. And so, for me, I have known him as a person. He was a friend. We have done some businesses together. I've known him for some time before becoming the vice presidential candidate for Nana Akufo-Addo. And I've known him.
How did you know him? In what frame did you know him?
Yes, I've known him to be a gentleman. He was not politically savvy when I knew him. About a week or two before he was even announced as the vice presidential candidate, I was with him in his office at the Bank of Ghana then. And so we had a hearty chat. We even forgot to talk about that. After 2 weeks, I heard he was mentioned as the vice presidential candidate, and that was it. And so he was somebody I have known. He was he is a technocrat as much as I am aware. He's a free-going person. He came on board, and I think that he carried a lot of people along, especially with most of the theories he propounded. People thought that he was going to do something extraordinary. We all were disappointed in him after 8 years or 7 years in government, and he's not been able to turn the fortunes of the economy around. And so, for me, they say when the tooth dies is when you see the full length. So we have now seen the full length of Bawumia. We have known what Dr. Mahama has been an assemblyman, a minister, a vice president, a president, and now staging a comeback. We have now seen what the two of them can do. And so for me, this time we'll see the real show at the north. I'm not sure that Bawumia will be able to hold on to anything significant this time around as against the candidature of John Dramani Mahama to be able to cause an upset at the northern region. Of course, I congratulate them for choosing him overwhelmingly during the primaries. The votes he got were very significant, and it was a clear statement made from the north that would go for our own. And now that
but generally, if you look at the votes, 61.47%, it was a far cry from what even his campaign team and members of the NPP had been calling. The projection by that UK-based poll was that he would secure 80.8%. He didn't get that. Most of his campaign people and members of the NPP said he would get nothing less than 70%. The likes of Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, majority leader, and a plethora of people said that. He had 61%. That has been a point of concern for some.
Exactly. Remember the last time I spoke to you, I told you he was going to win. But as for the percentage being branded about the 75%, the 80%, I wasn't sure he was going to get. And true to what I also predicted. He couldn't get the 75 or 80%. For me, that is a cause for concern for his team and himself, because he has not brought to bear the overwhelming significance and overbearing that people thought he was going to bring on the MPP itself.
Right.
And for me, it is the true color of him that we have seen now. Hitherto, he would have been seen as a saint, and people would have been hailing him, but now most of us know who he is. And so he doesn't carry the weight that we thought he had. And so for me, he against JDM on at the northern part of the country, I'm not sure he'll be able to hold his might so much against him. I believe that the 8 years tenure that he's had as a vice presidential candidate hasn't brought so much, especially that he's now drifted from being an economic whiskey to a digitalization expert. It means that he cannot, the fire was too hot for him, he had to leave the kitchen. So,
all right, so two quick things. One, is it going to be cool chop for the NDC and John Dramani Mahama against Dr. Bawumia? If you look at the rhetoric, if you look at the tail of the tape, maybe not. I would like to get your answer. But secondly, you would also look at the fact that he has contributed to the MPP's votes quite, a bit in the northern belt of the country. The NDC has happened to lose some seats. In fact, you lost some seats that you had to struggle to regain in the 2020 elections. So even if we're focusing on the northern belt, the fact that these two candidates are of northern extraction, the fact that they're going to go toe to toe, very close, in close proximity, in the same surroundings, and that the rest of the northern belt is going to be up for anyone to pick, depending on the message, it's going to be pretty tricky for you, isn't it? You look at the votes that the NDC have secured all the way from 1992 till around 2008, and it's been pretty solid. But then since Dr. Bawumia came in, he's also posed some problems for you. How do you analyze that?
Anybody who thinks the 2024 election is going to be a walkover for NDC should be a joker. But of course, at the end of the day, I know that we're definitely going to win as a party. Yes, Dr. Bawumia has made a lot of significant, has brought in a lot of votes for the MPP in the northern part of the country, because then we didn't know who he really is. Like I said, when a toad dies, you see its full length. Now that he's dead, we've seen the full length of himself. So he wouldn't be able to cause an upset like he used to do in the past. And he's had a stint as governor for the past 8 years. And so we've known him, we've seen him like Don Dramani has been.
But the assertion is that you've not seen him as president, you've seen him as vice president.
And I am marking him based on his role as a vice president, not as a president. He was the leader of the economic management team, right? What has he brought to bear on the economy? That's why I say he's now shifted focus from being an economist and an expert, and now he's into digitalization. How far we've come with the digitalization and digitization is another matter. So for me, those are the things we are judging him on. And if Danado would always say that he's relied solely on the advice of his vice president, for which reason, even the last speech he rendered, he said that he's going to do anything and everything with this in power to make sure that he becomes the president of Ghana, shows that he has so much confidence in him, and he might have taken a lot of advice from him. So Bawumia cannot absorb himself completely off from whatever is happening to us now as Ghanaians and say that because he's not a driver himself. Once in a while he drives, doesn't it? The mate, once your driver is not there, they'll put him in the seat. And what have you done within that period? It's what we are judging him with, not necessarily as a president. So for me, he doesn't have so much clout like he used to have, for which reason people will be running after him. This time, we have known and we have seen him, and we are definitely going to judge him based on that.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts. There's also impose stiffer punishment for attacks on media personnel. That story on page 4. Minister to Judiciary and the Ministry of Information has appealed to the judiciary to consider stiffer punishment for persons who attack media houses and journalists in the line of duty. During a presentation on the upsurge of attacks on journalists on the floor of Parliament yesterday, the Minister of Information, Kojo Nkrumah, said data available to his ministry suggested that the trend was on the ascendancy. He stated that the phenomenon of attacks and intimidation of journalists was gaining notoriety in Ghana. So that's the first story I wanted to look at. I'll go on the international front and add to and take your responses from there. I've been very concerned, especially as one who has followed the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for a while. G7 calls for humanitarian pauses in Israel's bombardment of Gaza. And top diplomats from the group of 7 have called for, quote, humanitarian pauses in Israel's bombardment in order to deliver aid to desperate Palestinian civilians in the Gaza Strip. Now, the foreign ministers from the leading industrial democracies announced on Wednesday, November 8, that they had agreed upon a unified stance on the Israel-Hamas war following intensive meetings in Tokyo. They released a statement that condemned Hamas and supported Israel's right to self-defense, but called for humanitarian pauses in Israel's shelling of Gaza. The G7 statement sought to balance criticism of Hamas's attacks and support for Israel with a push for, quote, urgent action to help civilians in the besieged Palestinian enclave who are in desperate need of food, water, medical care, and shelter. And finally, having spoken about what is happening in the Middle East, let's also look at what is happening right here in Africa. Sudan conflict. Thousands flee fresh ethnic killings in Darfur. It appears whenever Darfur comes into the picture, there's always some negativity attached. It's sad. Thousands of people have been forced to flee the Sudanese region of West Darfur amid fears of ethnic cleansing, a medical charity says. Witnesses have accused the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, that's the RSF, of targeting and killing non-Arabs. This comes after the RSF captured the Sudanese army headquarters in West Darfur's capital of El Geneina in recent days. The RSF said it was not involved in what it described as a, quote, tribal conflict. It has been battling the army for control for the country since April. So that's the RSF. And just to add this, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, says most of the 7,000 people who have crossed into Chad in the past 3 days are women and children who are fleeing with nothing. And that is the heartbreaking aspect of all of these conflicts, whether it is Israel, Palestine, yes, Israel self-defense, but you know, a lot of the damage affecting the lives of women and children. Same thing in Sudan. And then the information minister on protecting the media. Your quick thoughts.
Yeah, so attack on media, I'm sure that will be of great concern to you because you are a player in the space. Most of us have condemned the attack on media because whatever you do as a human being is the media that is able to publicize that to a lot more of the people to hear of you. And so they, in the bid to do their legitimate work, may cross some lines, but should we throw away the baby with the bathwater? I think that we should always look at the other side of the story, knowing that they are there to also perform their responsibility and earn a living. And so the attack, yes, any day, any time, we need to condemn that. And so I support the Minister of Information saying that the punishment for people who perpetuate these crimes on media should be harsher than we seem to be seeing it, so that if it's not that harsh, people will just go to free and the next time plan further attacks. About these wars that happen around us, especially Israel-Hamas, I always will say that it is condemnable, especially from the side of Hamas, knowing the might of Israel. I don't know why they would always want to push them to the wall to bounce back. It is also not the best for Israel to restrict humanitarian aid to people who are being affected, because it's not everybody.
Their fear basically is that some of this might end up in the hands of Hamas, and maybe other things that should not get in will also get in through those windows. But at the same time, you cannot overlook the pain, the misery, the suffering, especially of women and children.
Yeah, Israel has been in this act of war for a very long time. And I'm sure that by now they would have mastered the craft of being in war and also allowing humanitarian aid. Because sincerely, you can't punish people unduly. I'm not sure everybody in Palestine belongs to the Hamas and is in support of whatever they do. So at least in all these circumstances, you should give some allowable space for people to breathe and also live.
Right.
I'm not sure they're interested in just wiping away everybody on the surface of the Gaza Strip. And so they should really look at these things and make sure that people are able to breathe.
Right.
Same as we are experiencing. Let's not get to the extent where every living creature on earth or within the space will be wiped away. We have to look at these things again. We are human.
Right.
And everybody who is doing that should also look at the humanitarian aspect of everything and make sure that at least tomorrow there will be some living beings also on earth.
All right. Let's make tracks and work within the next few minutes to cap off the review. The Ghanaian Times newspaper, 513,336 businesses land in trouble for failing to file annual returns and renewal for 3 years. EPA pushes for prosecutorial powers to punish environmental offenses. Attacks on journalists worsening upon Nkrumah warns. But there's a story on the back page I'd like to start from. Jura residents appeal to government to halt illegal mining activities in communities. And that's where I want to start, on the back page. Now, residents of 3 farming communities in Jura, in the Nzema East municipality of the Western region, have appealed to the government and the security agencies to halt the illegal operations of Okobeng Mining Company Limited and Draman Company Limited in the enclave. Now, the communities Abelobo, Esuewa, and Afransie complained that the operations of the 2 companies had distorted the economy, social life, and the environment of the 3 communities. The family head of Jura, Abelobo, Nana Efriwa II, who made the appeal on behalf of the residents in the 3 communities in an interview with the Ghanaian Times yesterday, alleged that the 2 companies were currently engaged in galamsey at Eswewa and Jura Francie and would soon enter Abelobo. Quoting him, he says, "Any attempts to enter Abelobo will be met with the full force of the community. Okobeng Mining Company Limited, through its activities, has caused huge devastation to Jura lands, resulting in loss of livelihoods, economic and social dislocations as well." And those are the concerns being raised. In fact, there's a picture there of the river Ankobra, and it shows how things have really deteriorated as far as that is concerned. Let me also get to the banner headline. There is... okay, so where's that story? It is on page 11. All right, here we go. A total of 513,336 businesses that have defaulted in filing their annual returns and renewal for the past 3 years risk being struck off from the company's registry if they fail to file by December the 31st this year. The businesses include 3,100 church organizations, and I find it interesting, 3,100 church organizations and 500,000 sole proprietorship entities. Already, 2,788 businesses in default have been put in a state of inactivity for non-filing of returns for more than 3 years. Reflections, Maxwell.
Yeah, so the mining issues, we have long spoken about them, the effect it's having on our land, our water bodies, and then on livelihood. People are looking for the quick fix they will get today from the galamsey that they do and forget about the future of us. You do galamsey, you get money, you need to go and buy food with it. And so if farmlands are being destroyed because of galamsey, we should know that our future is very bleak. And I don't know why the regulatory bodies, the tax forces that we always form, end up not achieving the result that we expect them to achieve. And at the end of the day, all we hear is they themselves accusing one another for being neck deep in this act. And so it's always a bother when new tax forces are being formed, especially from this MPP government. They do it and they come back to accuse themselves. And even when Frimpong had to come out with some evidences and stuff like that, people still don't believe it and they want him to go further than he could have gone and just rubbish anything he comes to say. It's unfortunate. Sometimes I just don't know what else we could do to salvage the situation that we found ourselves in. Industries coming to our areas to do things and affect our land. At this point, let me say that the issue of the Adan to flow thing about Magdan and the salt mining and the individuals, the folks in town, the fight, it's unfortunate. So these people are threatening that anybody who comes to their town again, especially in the Ejura area that we are talking about in terms of the galamsey thing, they will meet them squarely. Same thing happening in Adam, and one person shot dead. A lot of people have been injured. My condolences to them and to my colleague PC, Daniel Bessie. It's a tough one for him, and I just pray and hope that tempest will calm down and issues will be resolved more amicably. And so I think that we should be able to look at these things more critically and make sure that we save our future. The people in the communities, their livelihood matters so much to them, not just today. After 2, 3, 4 years, the people have to survive. If you come and just take anything and everything away, how do they survive? So I think that these policies should be refocused on how to resolve some of these taking problems that we see every day in our communities, and we just down the issue. It's not the best for us as a country.
Maxwell, I think the point is made there. My apologies. We're running out of time. I just want us to quickly take a look at these stories and wrap up. I think your point is made respectfully. Page 10 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let's respect human rights of persons with disability. The executive director of Protector of Sentiments Foundation, Jonathan Osei-Owusu, has called on government to prioritize disability issues and pay more attention to it to ensure that the human rights of such persons are respected. He noted that much had not been done after the establishment of the Disability Act 2006 to improve the living conditions of persons with disability, adding that it had taken the country from 2006 up to now to amend the act and put it into action. Of course, we all know about, for example, our brothers and sisters who are visually impaired, and the fact that even white canes, common white canes, are not provided for. A chunk of them, a large percentage of them, very few have them. So what quality of living or quality of life are we giving them? But 2 stories to wrap the conversation. The Daily Guide, it says, 7 names pop up for Bawumia running mates, and I'm sure you've heard of some of them. So let's just cut to the chase. Among the prominent figures whose names have emerged, Osei Mensa Bonsu, majority leader, a seasoned politician. There's also Akosua Frima Osei-Opare, Chief of Staff, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, MP for Manhyia, Energy Minister Joseph Osei-Owusu, MP for Bekwai, and First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Apostle Opoku Onyina, immediate past Chairman of the Church of Pentecost, Isaac Osei, former MP for Subing, and Dr. Yao Osei-Educhum, Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe and Minister of Education. There's also Come Join the Butterfly, Alan tells Ghanaians. And finally, the Business Finder newspaper, Get Fund clears 800 million Ghana cedi arrears, owed contractors on uncompleted projects. And so that is the latest situation there. Approximately 800 million Ghana cedis, equivalent to 96% of the total cost of inherited projects, has been disbursed to contractors who were awarded the contract. That's as far as the Get Fund is concerned. You can pick and choose which stories to reflect on, and it's a wrap. We have 2 minutes. Over to you, Maxwell.
Yeah, my interest will be the Get Fund project. It will be good news to hear that contractors have been paid because of the rippling effect that payment to contractors have on the economy. Many people rely on these people, suppliers, carpenters, masons. There are a lot of players within the space of construction. So it should be a good news if it is true that contractors have been paid and they will go back to work and make sure that these things are done. About the vice presidential slot, yes, it's normal. In political space like this, when it's done, a lot of people will come around and the jostling for power and all those things will come. I just wish Dr. Bawumia all the best. I know it's not the best of situations he would have found himself in now, because whoever he chooses comes to hand or play well for you. And so it's a dicey situation for him. But at the end of the day, I'm sure he will do C and above among the people and just pick one of them. Whoever they pick for us, we are just battle ready for any of them to come. We are assured that GDM, together with whoever he chooses as his deputy or his vice, would get a nod for us as a country at the end of the day so that we can this round.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maxwell. We're grateful for your time with us this morning. Maxwell Lukuto, of course, the NDC's parliamentary candidate elect for South Tone, and he's reiterating the call. The people in South Tone, North Tone, Central Tone, they need help. So let's all put our resources together, pool our resources, and give them that assistance. Maxwell, thank you for joining. Before we veer into sports, this segment is always brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And they're offering free prostate screening if you're a man, free fertility screening if you're a woman. Just reach out to them at any of their branches. Here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma here, behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanso and Siama and Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. End Point Homeopathic Clinic. The end to chronic disease. But if sports is your thing, all the highlights from the major sports are up next with Mubarak Haruna. Do stay.